Hi guys, welcome to Tamra's Tarot Variety and happy Easter everyone. Today is April 4th, 2021 and I'm just laughing, you guys. I was not planning on doing this video today. I have had Heath Ledger with me for I'd say like about 3 weeks now. So before I get started, let me welcome Heath Ledger, everyone. Yay! Hi, Heath. He's like looking down, he's touching his hair. He is wearing white. And he just switched it to black. He's wearing now like he's wearing very soft, like blackish gray t-shirt, and it looks very worn out. And now he's putting the white, it's like a white gauzy beach shirt over it, and he's just shaking his hair like that, like it looks like he's been at the beach all day. And he's like, yeah, he loves the ocean, and he's got like ripped jeans on, but they're very baggy, and no shoes. He said that's how he loved to dress, and we talked about that a lot. I'll get into that later. He's like, yeah, let's stay focused. That's gonna be a theme of this read. So the reason that I'm bringing Heath Ledger in today, which was not my plan, I wanted to perfect this information, meaning like have it be more organized and all of that, but he's like, just do it. And it's because I didn't realize this. I woke up and I didn't look up his biography, but I woke up and I went on Facebook. I had given up Facebook for Lent. I'll get into that another time, but I just woke up and looked at it, and just through my feed I saw that it was Heath Ledger's birthday, and I was like, oh my god, that's why he's been with me. And he's shaking his head. Yeah. He said that I was we're gonna talk about this. I was procrastinating and all over the place and doing a bunch of things at once. So I got as much information as I could, and he's with us, but he said he just wanted me to do it today. It's his birthday, so let's honor him. Let me just give you some facts. He's laughing. It's like, just the facts, ma'am. Yeah. We'll get into that later. So, as you know, Heath Ledger, born April 4th, 1979, and he passed January 22nd, 2008. He was born in Perth, Australia. And I just have to mention a coincidence. It seems like many of the people that have come for me to read, that have messages, they know each other and they are connected. So Heath passed January 22nd. Michael Hutchins, and he's like smiling, he knows Michael. Michael Hutchins was born January 22nd. So yeah, he's smiling, and this is interesting, guys. So, and Michael Hutchins is from Australia. So before we even get started, he's like, just say it. I was going to save this for later, but Heath Ledger told me that he is Pleiadian. Now, Michael Hutchins is not Pleiadian, but he is galactic. But there's a few things that have connected them: the dates, Australia, and Heath was dating before he passed Helena Christensen. Now he passed 122. He said that's a very twin flame number, and he sees it a little bit differently, but for our sake, he will consider Helena as his twin flame. And so very interesting. So he passed in Perth. He passed in New York City. It said acute combined drug intoxication. Now, guys, he wants to make this very, very, very clear. There was no foul play in his passing. Also, he said, besides the tokes, he was not a hardcore, he did not use hard drugs. And what his issue was, and I will get more into his biography and everything, what his issue was is that he was misdiagnosed. So we've been just talking about this for a while. He had A.D.D. and he was never diagnosed. And Mario Cuomo came through and told me he had that, and they're both telling me that I have that, so I have to get tested. But his big message is about A.D.D. because he believes it was the cause of his death. So he's saying that he had been prescribed different things. He had some like aches and pains in his joints. He had A.D.D., but they thought that he had anxiety and depression because his major issue was insomnia. And he was telling me, like, that's why I have insomnia. So it's very important for people who have A.D.D. to get tested. And he said that if you are able, like if you succeed at things, that oftentimes you're not diagnosed. And oftentimes you're not diagnosed, like if you're a woman, or like him and Mario, they didn't have ADHD, and neither do I. Like they were not hyperactive. So he said that ADD got its moment in the sun, and then it immediately went to like ADHD. And now he said many people have ADD. It's just the inattention, or it's more complicated than that. But the inattentive form of ADD, and it gets misdiagnosed because if you don't have the HD, oftentimes, like Mario, like Heath, like me, we just find these things in life that we do really well. We do well at them, and then we have some issues like that people think are maybe funny, like overly focusing on certain things and then under focusing. But if it's easily hidden. He said you pay people to do your taxes, all that stuff, and he was so focused on acting that he did really well at it. And he told me, yeah, the things that I like to do, I do really well. And so, yeah, he said it's just a shame because he was diagnosed with not only like with anxiety and depression and aches and pains and stuff. So, but what happened to him was the combination of the drugs weakened his system. And that's what happened with Brittany Murphy. I mean, she was a different case, but he was over medicating, and you have to understand that his brain chemistry was already different from having ADD. And so the medications for pain, for insomnia, and for anxiety and depression were not even working the way that they should. And he didn't have anxiety and depression. So think he has one brain disorder that's not being treated. Then he's taking medication for a brain disorder that he doesn't have. And he said he just felt like a failure because he had all these people helping him with these medications and they didn't have the right effect. In fact, he said they made the insomnia worse. And it got to a point where his system was so toxic that, and he said he was running himself ragged. And yeah, we talked about this, guys. So I totally understand what he's saying. Like, so think of ADD, it's actually that you have a hard time focusing and processing because you're taking everything in. And he was psychic too. So when he would take all this information in when he was on set, and then he would try to go home and go to sleep, he couldn't. And it sounds like your head is like a bell. Yes, I know this exactly. And it's just, yeah, he's showing me like the Liberty Bell and someone just banging on it, like while you're trying to sleep. And that's the sensation of trying to sleep when you're overstimulated. People with ADD get overstimulated all the time. And if you're psychic, he was a medium. That's how he did his roles too. He would channel the energy and become the role. And that's what I did as an actor too. So let me, we'll get back to this. So I knew it was going to be like this. It's just like with Robin. Now Robin's here. He just slides in whenever his name is called. Hi, Robin. So Robin's been playing tricks on me. They all have. They've been knocking my stones, my crystals off of my tarot cards and teasing me. Yeah, we'll get into that later. So Heath, let me concentrate, guys. So Heath was an actor, photographer, and a music video director, which is just so interesting. He received critical acclaim. Just notice how I'm getting serious. I raise my voice. They're laughing. They're like, you're so authoritative. He received critical acclaim for Brokeback Mountain, The Joker, and he wants to say, he's very upset about this. He did not, even though he channeled the Joker, he didn't go into a dark place. And this is something that Spirit has told me and over, is like, guys, be careful of these perfect narratives, like, and Robin Williams is like, yeah, oh, Robin was so depressed and strung out and he killed himself. It's like bing, bang, boom. It's this narrative. and that's not true, but it just sounds good. It makes sense. So Heath Ledger, there's this narrative like, oh, he got too into being the Joker, and then he couldn't get out of it. It actually sounds like a really cool story, but that's not the truth. He did get dark with the Joker, but he had no issues getting dark. I experienced that too. If I got dark with a character, or I get dark with, a read or something like that. Like, I honestly, guys, and Robin Williams, they're shaking their heads like, we don't see the dark emotions as any worse than the bright ones. Like, he wasn't lying in bed with insomnia because he was depressed. It was more of a physical reaction. Robin's saying he had insomnia too. Guys, if you work on a set and then you go home and you're in a still room and you have like any sort of ADD, or you're medium, which most good acting is mediumship. It's just your system is so, they're showing me like a battery. And they're going like they're pretending they're in a cartoon, like plugging in a cartoon battery. It's just, and then the stress comes from having to get up early and work again all day long around people, where you're getting these messages. And so, it's, imagine like your wedding day, something huge, okay, where you're overly focused and you're on. That's how people who are mediums and have ADD, etc., feel, or I guess people who are on the spectrum too, feel a lot when they're around people. It's just more. Okay. So let me go on. Heath was English, Irish, and Scottish descent, even though he was born in Australia. And, they're just saying like that certain lineages it's like they're showing me this sort of tree. It's like the lineage. I have, the Irish too. It's like they're just showing me the Pleiadian influence. The Robin's Pleiadian, I'm Pleiadian. They're showing me the influence. It's goes with a sort of a Neanderthal line too. Not always, but it's they're also saying like, guys, we're not special. Like, yeah, they're saying like, this sounds like we're making ourselves out to be very special, and that's not it. Like, Mr. Rogers is coming and he's like, we're all special. And you have to understand, like, even being Pleiadian, I can get into that another time, but it's a heart-centered influence. But we're all from somewhere, and each place is special. Like, Michael Hutchins is coming in, and he's like, I'm not Pleiadian, he's galactic. I didn't realize it was going to get like this, guys. It's just become just a total party and an S show. But they're all like really wanting to, explain like, it sounds like we're special, because I get embarrassed too, being like all the time, like, oh, I'm a medium and I'm an indigo and I'm Pleiadian. And they're saying, yeah, a lot of Pleiadians are indigo, but you know, they feel like, just like I do, like their doctor is special, and could even be Pleiadian, but like teachers, and especially for people like us who are into mediumship, acting, feeling, emoting, sensing, like we really value critical thinkers, people who can help us with our taxes and do math, and engineers, and they're saying some Pleiadians are those things too, but we really want to drive that home. And also they'd like you to really figure out what you are. Okay, so moving on, Heath, and now they're all sitting behind him. He's on a stool. Now they just created a party with like a craft service table behind it, and they're all having snacks. And they're doing that on purpose, so as to not try, like saying like we're the background people of this video. So he married Michelle Williams in 2004, and she's not Pleiadian. They have a daughter, Matilda Rose, who was born, they said 10/28/2005 in New York City, and he wants to give a message to his daughter saying like, he's sorry. He feels like he screwed up. It was his life path to go, but because now he can, it's all about the messages. He's liking giving these messages and being where he is about ADD. He really wants people to really consider that. He says Matilda doesn't have it, and Matilda is not Pleiadian, but he said Matilda's really special. Yes, of course. And then, so he is saying that many Pleiadian or different galactic people do have a hard time. They have an easier time connecting with people like who are alike, and he said that's just like anyone you connect with, people who are more like you. And he said Michael connected more strongly with Paula, even though they fought, but that was their thing. Yes, and someone corrected me, and I have to apologize. I was saying that Michael was married to Paula, not on Earth, but I said that because they came in wearing white, and it's just something that rolled off my tongue. I actually didn't look at his biography before I started, and so that taught me a lesson. And I don't edit my videos. I don't know how. So that taught me a lesson to look at the earthly facts and to make sure I get them right. Their opinions are different though, because sometimes the facts are wrong, but he was saying contrary to what people believe, he was going to marry Paula, and their earthly relationship would have been rocky, but it's just they were both headstrong. Anyway, back to Heath. They have this in common. So Michael did connect with Helena Christensen, but Heath connected with her more because they're both Pleiadian. And oftentimes, guys, you can see that in someone's eyes. So I'm just going to go on to the automatic writing. He's like, please do. I've already said a lot of it. So absolutely not. He wants you to know he did not take his own life. No foul play. It was an accident, an unfortunate accident. So let's get to the old t-shirt. So I noticed in interviews, I watched a couple of his interviews, and he was wearing, like, this is a thin old t-shirt. You can see how it just kind of has no shape. It's a sensory issue. I love wearing things like this, and he did too. There's one interview where he was wearing his favorite, it's like blue, dark bluish gray. And I love that color too. A lot of my things are either that color or black. You can see my background. But he said Pleiadians love blue. So, and the water, the ocean. So let's go back to the t-shirt. So that's one of the things I noticed in an interview. He was wearing that, and he said, yeah, after he did the Joker, he did an interview where he was wearing this old t-shirt, and people just were really trying to put things together to create a narrative that, he was strung out and that he was depressed. And he said he was not depressed, he was not strung out. He actually didn't even have anxiety, he just had insomnia. And also that press junket, that's what he said. The continual interviewing drove him nuts, and we talked about this. This is like an ADD thing, and this might even be, just a lot of people feel this. We hate repeating ourselves or telling the same story over and over. And he said, that's why Robin would go off the cuff in his stand-up. It just, he said, so there was one interview where he was teasing the interviewer because he just couldn't say the same thing over again. And he had that ringing in his ears, just from being overstimulated. And the interviewer was answering questions for him and kind of being pretentious. And he likes to tease. He just started teasing the interviewer. And he said that was one of the interviews where people were saying oh, he's lost it. And he's, he got into the Joker's mindset. And guys, it's so funny to me that people won't believe in mediumship, or I've been getting nasty comments on being a psychic, being a medium, and doing these videos. People won't believe in that stuff, but they'll just believe this false narrative. He said people like to sound smart, and I don't want to insult anyone, but it's like dumb smart. He's saying it's something that just makes you sound clever but isn't true. And he said that's a big issue, just being oh, he did the Joker, he got into the character, he couldn't get out of the character, and so he was in that dark horrible place that the Joker was. And he's like, guys, think about that. Do you think people could just change their whole personality just by playing a role? No. He said there was such a thing back in the day, method acting, and people get into it, but you're using your own experiences. But yeah, I hear you. And there's another misnomer that he wants to correct about, there was this guy, and I saw, he asked me to look for him. I watched this interview, just this guy that was playing victim, a paparazzi guy who actually wanted his 15 minutes of fame, that claimed that Heath had spit on him. So then this guy was really aggressive and influential and got the other paparazzi to start taunting Heath because he said he was victimized by Heath, but Heath didn't do that. And if many of you watch, and that's the thing too, that he said he was really annoyed about, and I get annoyed about, like, I did stand-up comedy, I did improv, and Robin shaking his head. Guys, comedians, just because you do comedy doesn't mean that you're a jerk. And I noticed this too. I would do comedy and I wasn't even like a jerky comedian. And Robin noticed this, and Heath, because Heath likes to tease and joke around, but it doesn't mean that you're mean. But many people think that if you make a witty joke, and Robin's like, yeah, like he would, you all know Robin's humor, and Heath's humor if you're a Heath Ledger fan. If you watched interviews and stuff, it's not nasty. It's just kind of observant. I can't talk. But just because you're observant, like I noticed as soon as back in the day when I was doing stand-up and I did improv, but I wrote like comedian on my Facebook, and I would just make these observations, and some people would just write in my comments like something like, back, I'm doing that face like, gotcha. And it's like, I wasn't trying to stick it to anyone. And he said that okay. He said it's jarring, and it is, because just because you're in comedy doesn't mean like you're mean. You're not a bully. Although there are bully type comics. Okay. This is how we talk. If you're still listening, this is, okay, so this is interesting because it was said that another misnomer is that Heath started to go to clubs, and that he was, doing lots of illicit, I don't want my video to get too flagged, but illicit substances. And he wasn't. So he said, and we discussed this at length, because I used to like to go to clubs in Boston when I lived in Boston, but I went to these smaller, like international clubs. He's shaking his head because, so surprisingly, guys, when people with ADD get overwhelmed, going to a club and hearing techno or that dance music and the lights is actually soothing. And I know that doesn't make sense, but he said it, and I agreed, it calms our brain. And then we talked about the issue with clubs. First of all, how they got like a really seedy reputation, so you don't want to be known as like a club goer. And he said it contributed to the false narrative about him. But we talked about like the grossness sometimes of how clubs got. He said the spitting when people are drinking, and he said he only really liked to have a couple drinks. Sometimes he would, drink too much. He was not an alcoholic, but he didn't like the alcoholism in the clubs, and I didn't either. And he said like cheap sex, he wasn't into that, one night stands. And he was talking about, how people spit on you and the depravity. Nastiness, the sweating. He said like bad breath, people like on you. I didn't like that either. So I went to like smaller, sort of classy clubs. I'm not judging anyone, but I couldn't take that sort of meat market feel either. Anyway, so he said the only relationship he had with the Pleiadian, someone with Pleiadian, is Helena Christensen. So then we went on. If you're still here, we'll get to the real woo-woo. And this is what Heath and the other people who have come through and Jesus and my guides are trying to help me with, is like, I've got to start talking more about this stuff. He said that, so Heath and I have known each other because I was racking my brain because obviously Heath is a very attractive and charismatic man. And I was telling him, just like with Michael Hutchins, I have no physical attraction to either one of them or Robin. But it's because, so he was saying, and he wants me to, before I get into this, to reiterate, tell his daughter he loves her and he's sorry. And he's very happy with how his will finally turned out. So I had this dream, I would say it was in the 90s, 1990s, and it just floored me. I had this dream where I was pushing my son in a swing. Now I don't have children. And he looked back at me and he had like Heath's eyes, like, you know, Heath has like those hooded sort of brown eyes. And but it was a little boy with the same curly hair. And he said that that was a past life dream, which I've had many past life dreams. And so I was Heath's father, and we lived in Israel. We were Jewish, and I was a writer. So it's interesting. This is my first time being a woman, I was told. But another thing was, I watched The Joker like a long time after it came out. I was just so busy, and he's laughing. He's like, it's always the family members who don't watch your stuff. But so I watched it like later, maybe just like a few years ago, and I definitely sided with the Joker because just the sociology behind it, how he was sort of like testing, and he's shaking his head, like testing people. Like what I really pulled from that was like, it's like he had experienced trauma and he was trying to test people because he had distrusted humanity, because it was this idea that you don't really know what someone's going to be like until their back is against the wall and what choices they're going to make. And when we live this sort of comfortable, well, we've seen it in this past year. Yeah, he's shaking his head, like we've seen all these choices that people have had to make from the beginning. Like, are you going to follow the health guidelines to protect others? And he said this was like a movie. Like, you're given these circumstances, these tests, and you can see the different morals of people. And it's not about judgment, but you can see the different morals and choices. And he said that's what the Joker was about, kind of trying to test people and be like, well, what would you do under these circumstances? So I really understood that. And it's not about, you know, siding with the dark side or with destruction. It's just about trying to figure out like who, you know, who's actually good. And not that you want, it's complicated, but you know, it's just the idea of many people feel that they are like saintly and And it's just that we're comfortable, and then when push comes to shove, that's when you see he's saying, yeah. That's when you see how people really are. And it's just fascinating just to think about. And they're all shaking their heads. They're like, yeah, we're just here. We're being tested. We want to learn. None of us are perfect. But that's what the Joker was doing too, but just in a very dramatic way. And he's going like this with his hair, like, and he likes to move around. Even though he said he didn't have ADHD, he doesn't. He just, even if you have ADD, you like to sort of move around a little bit and then not sit totally still, because it kind of makes you feel like you're shaking a little bit on the inside. Yeah. And he also liked to do sort of like an awkward movements, like many people on the spectrum. It's not exactly the same, but there's just ways of being, yeah. And he says he really wishes we could all accept each other's differences. And he's saying he was different growing up, of course, and he got through okay. He did feel a little bit weird and different, but yeah, that's one thing he wishes just the pattern keeps playing out. He's like, how many times do people have to understand, like, their surgeon or their, he's saying Elon Musk, and these people are a little bit different than the norm growing up. And he's like, hopefully he thinks like with this current crisis that's changing, because many people who are different actually thrived during this time because they're able to concentrate on their own special, and he's saying that's what people have in common with people on the spectrum, is they have a lot of special interests, and if they're just allowed to do them and respected, they can accomplish so much. Oh wow, this is the longest, but we've got people with ADD doing this, but this is the longest read. I hope you made it this far. And he's saying peace out, and it's just adorable. Like, I just want to hug him. And so let's thank Heath Ledger for coming in. Thank you, Heath. This is my show. It doesn't have to be just, he's like 5 minutes on the couch. Yeah. So anyway, I want to say goodbye to Heath and Robin, Mr. Rogers, and Michael Hutchins. Bye, guys. I'm having some sort of allergy thing right now, too. All right. I love you guys, and I love you guys, too. Thank you for watching this. Let me just look through my notes quickly to see if I missed anything. And I'm so glad everything's okay with Heath's daughter. He said, yeah, there's really nothing to worry about. Just that he misses her, he loves her, and he's sorry. Those are the 3 messages. All right, bye guys, for real.